On a cloudy and cold Tuesday morning in Northeast Ohio. Welcome, everybody, into the bullpen. I'm Adam the Bull. Dustin is just getting back from the cruise, the Buckeye Cruise. He will rejoin me on Thursday. Make sure you send all your comments to the chat. Any comments you put out there, any questions you may have, put in the chat right now, and I'll answer or read as many as I can. A lot to get to today. We got to talk a little bit more about the Cavs, obviously, and the start of this run against good teams, which began with the loss against Oklahoma City, and obviously the Knicks are next. We'll get to that. I'll get to the NFL, and it is mock draft season. Yes, free agency comes first, and we're 2 weeks away from free agency. It's almost here. The new league year begins in around 2 weeks. But before we do that, let me remind you that while the Cavs are battling for home court in the Eastern Conference, Bet Rivers is giving you a bonus bet to use on the Cavs in this stretch run. Now until March 15th, go to your Bet Rivers app in Ohio and use the code ATB223. You see it right there on the screen beneath me. The bonus code ATB223. Take advantage of this right now, or anytime between now and March 15th, and get a $10 bonus bet. That code again is ATB223. Make sure you've downloaded the Bet Rivers app here in Ohio if you haven't done so already. Must be 21. Eligible players only. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And again, we got Sammy Hill with just the bull emojis today. Appropriately, Z is asking about my mock draft. I'm not creating a mock draft, Z. Because, see, the problem, now I'm going to go on a rant, and I'm glad Z brought this up because this is going to lead me on a rant. The problem in this business is that everybody feels like they have to be an expert on everything. And that if you're not an expert on everything, people are going to question your credibility or whatever. You can't worry about that. You can't worry about what your critics are saying. You can't live that way. You will if you're a young person or even not a young person and you're interested in getting into sports broadcasting or whatever, it's a very complicated field. Much like the rest of the media, there's always a lot of criticism, and that's part of the deal. Especially when you're not afraid to give strong opinions or you're not afraid to dish it out. I dish it out a lot. I give people shit all the time. So I got to take it back. Does it affect you? Most of the time, no. Earlier in my career, I think it affected me more. Now, 99% of the time, it's water over the bridge. Does it every once in a while? Something gets to me, sure. But you that's part of the deal. If you can't handle it, get out. Now, another part of this business is that we've gotten to a point where everybody who does sports talk thinks they're an expert on everything, and you're not. And I take pride in the fact that, like, I know some things better than others. Or I shouldn't take that pride in that necessarily, but I take pride in the fact that I'm willing to admit that I know things better than others, right? So I'm not going to pretend that I'm qualified to give a mock draft. But what I will do, first of all, I've said it once, I say it a million times. Don't judge. We all judge when the draft is over. We all give our opinions. That's part of the gig. You got to give an opinion. But you always got to realize that a lot of our opinions are colored by the fact of mock drafts. So if just like with Shedeur Sanders last year, the reason so many people were up in arms about where he was drafted is because the mock drafts had him high. If every mock draft had predicted Shedeur Sanders to be a fifth-round pick, you may have disagreed with that. That's fine. But nobody would have gotten worked up by what happened. But because everybody thought he was going to be not only a first-round pick, but a high first-round pick, when you drop significantly like that, it gets people up in arms. Something must be wrong. And maybe it is. Time will tell. So you got to take mock drafts, and there's a lot of groupthink when it comes to it, especially, as you go further down the line. I certainly respect Mel Kiper's opinion. I certainly respect Dane Brugler's opinion. And there are others, Dane from The Athletic, and obviously everybody knows Mel Kiper. But you got to take it all with a grain of salt. I mean, really everything that's just an opinion. We're always going to disagree. And there's nothing wrong with disagreeing. I'm often told, when I was on the radio especially, I'd often get people say, you don't like when people disagree with you. And my answer would be, well, first of all, I do like it because I like to argue. Isn't that obvious? And I'm passionate when I argue. And some people take that as, well, you don't like to argue. No, I love it. I love to debate. That's the thing about sports. Don't we all love to debate? Don't we argue with our friends? I do that all the time. And so don't get offended if I disagree with your opinion or I make fun of your opinion. You can make fun of my opinion. I don't give a rat's ass. Why is it a rat's ass? Where did that start from? I have no idea. But mock drafts are fun this time of the year because it introduces you maybe to players you didn't know as well, or it gives you at least a somewhat educated opinion on what teams might do. Mel Kiper's somewhat plugged in. Often he's in the ballpark of the Shedeur Sanders thing was an extreme situation. That's a rarity that something like that happens. But what's my dog doing here? I don't know. It's like laying on all my computer wires. You comfortable like that, Crashy? All right, buddy. Anyway, Mel Kiper put out his latest mock draft just this morning. And just a couple things that I wanted to share with you. He has Caleb Downs going number 2 overall to the Jets, who just traded a big safety a few years ago. He has Arvell Reese, another Buckeye, of course, going 4th to the Titans. Spencer Fano, the offensive lineman, who some people think is a guard. He has him going 5th to the Giants, so that wouldn't be an option for the Browns. And at the 6th spot, at that point, he has Carnell Tate going. This is what Mel Kiper had to say. Like the Giants, the Browns need offensive line and receiver reinforcements. Unlike the Giants, the Browns have 2 first-round picks. So although Miami lineman Francis Mayuga is tempting here, Cleveland would likely take its pick of the entire wide receiver class and kick the can down the road, down the order to the O-line. Tate is at the top of the receiver list right now with great hands and savvy route running. Cleveland wideouts combined for just 4 touchdowns last season. So after an 875-yard, 9-touchdown season, Tate could step in as the top option for the Browns. Again, even though Mel Kiper's probably as connected as anybody when it comes to mock drafts, he's basing this on obvious needs. He has no insight. He has no real, even if you read his analysis, that's no real insight to the Browns. He's not getting anything from Andrew Berry or Kevin Stefanski. That's not happening. He's making an educated guess based on the Browns' need and the talent available. It's reasonable. I think none of us would be surprised if the Browns take Carnell Tate. He has Sonny Styles going 7 to the Commanders, which would mean 4 Buckeyes in the top 7, which is that's just nuts, but certainly very realistic. Mekhi Lemon, who I know my guys Tyvis Powell and G. Bush have been very high on, slot receiver, ended up going ahead of Jordan Tyson, who's been talked about as the top receiver. They've got Mekhi Lemon going 8 to the Saints. Jeremiah Love, the running back out of Notre Dame, going to Kansas City at 9. And then Reuben Bain Jr. To the Bengals at 10, the pass rusher from Miami. Some other names of note, Mayuga at 11. We've talked about him possibly going to the Browns. Mel Kiper has him going 11 to the Dolphins. He has the Ravens taking Jordan Tyson at 14. And let me see if there's any more Buckeyes. He has Ty Simpson going to the Steelers at 21, which is interesting. He has the Browns taking Monroe Freeling, offensive tackle from Georgia, with the 24th pick. Here's what he says for this. The Browns went Carnell Tate earlier, but their entire starting offensive line from last season is unsigned. So we know where this pick has to go. Freeling has started only 18 games, but he's a solid pass protector. He just needs some work as a run blocker. His ceiling is high. I like the idea of pairing the 6'7" Freeling with the 6'8" DeJuan Jones as the O-line's bookends. Now, I don't know if you could trust DeJuan Jones as a bookend when he hasn't been able to stay on the field. It would be nice if he could. He has Caden McDonald from Ohio State going 25th. That would be, what, the 6th Buckeye taken? Or 5th? Can't remember now. Denzel Boston, another guy we've talked about involving the Browns, going 26th to Buffalo. And Emmanuel McNeil Warren going 30 to the Broncos from Toledo. Wonder if Toledo's ever had a first-round pick before. They probably have. It's probably somebody obvious I'm just not thinking of. But anyway, that's some thoughts. But again, it's very important to take it with a grain of salt. Don't pretend everybody's an expert. Even Mel Kiper, who has been doing this longer than anybody, is basically making educated guesses or somewhat educated guesses in all these spots. I think that's very important to note when it comes to the Browns in this situation. Sammy Hill says, I'm a huge Buckeyes fan. I think very highly of Tate, but I just don't see him as a top 10 pick. Time will tell. I guess the top-end receivers aren't as strong in this draft. Tate has been coached by the best, though. He probably has a high ceiling. You know, it's easy to want to just take a Buckeye receiver there. Buckeye receivers, for the most part, have done very well in the NFL. You know, I guess you could argue there's been some underachievement maybe from Marvin Harrison Jr., even though he hasn't been in a great situation. There's been a lot more overproduction or more production than you thought coming out of college on a lot of these Buckeye guys, most notably Jackson Smith and Jigba, who just had a monster season this past year, and he wasn't as highly thought of as some of the other wide receivers that came out, including Marvin Harrison Jr. You know, it's tough to tell. Everybody seems to think the question is Tate going to be a good or a great receiver? If you draft him at 6, he better be great. And you live with good, but again, that's what we said about Mason Graham. You took him that high, he better be great. We know he's good. He might be great, but he better be great. You take a guy in the top 10, he's not a great player, it's a disappointment. Now, there's levels of disappointment. A guy like Mason Graham is already better than Jedrick Wills ever was. If he's not great, it'll be disappointing. If he's just a very good player, okay. Jedrick Wills was a total bust. Is Carnell Tate going to be a great player? Seems like the floor is pretty high. How high is the ceiling? It's a good question. I just gave myself a good question for a question I asked. That's a little weird. Palace Life Kid says the Toledo cornerback went in the first round a couple of years ago. Quinyon Mitchell. Okay. There you go. I figured there's probably somebody, but it was not an obvious name. But nice job out of you, Palace. I don't even. I can't even read your name. I'm sorry, Palace Kid. Z says, do you see the Browns going after Tyler Linderbaum? Obviously, there's been a lot of connection with Todd Monken and Tyler Linderbaum as a free agent. He's a center. I think he's more likely to go to the Giants. Obviously, the Browns have a lot of work to do on the offensive line. Their top 6 offensive linemen are all free agents, and they weren't very good to begin with. But I think the Browns are hoping that Luke Whippler, who played a little at the end of the year, towards the end of the year, although he got hurt right at the end of the year. I think the hope is that he steps in and is their starting center. But listen, anything's possible. The Browns are not afraid to spend money in free agency. They've done it many times before. They do all the reworking of these contracts, including Deshaun Watson, to free up some money. So, yeah, I think it's entirely possible that they could sign Linderbaum. But if you ask me to guess right now, I would guess that he's more likely to end up with the Giants than the Browns. All right, Sammy Hill says he Googled it. They've had 2 first-rounders, Toledo. The other one's Dan Williams in 1993, 11th overall to the Broncos. I never heard of Dan Williams, but thank you for the info. Honorable mention to Kareem Hunt, third rounder out of Toledo. Yeah. Yep, that's true. All right. Let's switch gears and talk about the Cavs here. Cavs coming off their first loss in a while, getting beat by Oklahoma City. Obviously, Oklahoma City with that magnificent first quarter. And the Cavs came back, actually took the lead, and then the Thunder pulled away at the end, win 121-113. Try to get back on track tonight. Another exciting game, another good opponent on the schedule. They're playing the Knicks in Cleveland tonight. They after back-to-back road games, they'll play the Knicks, and then they go on another road trip. So you got the Knicks tonight. Cavs play a lot of games here tight together. They played 3 games in 4 days right out of the break, and now starting tonight, they have 4 games in 6 days. They got the Knicks at home, then they go to Milwaukee tomorrow, Detroit on Friday, and Brooklyn on Sunday. So obviously the 2 games to keep an eye on are the game against the Knicks tonight. That game's on Peacock. And the game on Friday at Detroit is on ESPN. Cavs have a lot of national TV games over the next month. They're on either Prime, Peacock /NBC, ESPN, or ABC. Let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in their next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14. 7 times in the next 14 games. And it's all good games against the Knicks, the Pistons, the Celtics, Orlando. Dallas, not a good team. Milwaukee, and Orlando again. Surprised the second Piston game next week, the one here in Cleveland, a week from today. That's not on national TV either. But the Cavs will be tested here. We'll find out with this new combination of players, with James Harden, with Schroeder, with Ellis, how they look. Does it mean anything come playoff time? I don't believe it does, but you can make your judgment after the fact. But, yeah, all these good opponents. And then after the Orlando game on March 24th, which is 1 month from now, the schedule they still got games with Miami, who's decent. You got the Lakers at the end of March. You got Golden State to start April. And then their last 5 games, you got Atlanta, who's in the playoff mix there too. So, frankly, I'm enjoying watching the team more, but the season's just too long. It's just too long for me. It is. It's obviously a lot more fun watching them now with Harden and the other guys, but I'm just ready for the playoffs to begin. But where will the Cavs end up? They, as you see, the 4th seed in the East right now as of this morning. They're 3 games back of Boston in the loss column and 1 back of the Knicks in the loss column. So if they win tonight, the Cavs and Knicks will be tied. They're only a game and a half up and only 1 game up on Toronto in the loss column. Philly in the 6th spot, and then Orlando, Miami, Atlanta, and Charlotte as of now would be the play-in teams. So you got some good tests coming up. Knicks, Celtics, Pistons, the 3 teams ahead of you in the East. You're playing them all in the next few weeks. Pistons lost their first game in a bit to the Spurs. I think that was yesterday. 114-103. So anyway, we'll see what happens there. But obviously, overall, the Pistons are playing at an extremely high level at this point. Final thing I wanted to get to, I just got a couple thoughts on the Guardians here in a minute, but Chris asked if I'm going to be on UCSS today. I will not be on UCSS today. I will be on UCSS the rest of the week after today, tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. At this time of year on UCSS, once football season is over, everybody goes down. We go from during the football season, G. Bush and I are on 5 days a week, and everybody else is on either 2 or 3 days or less. This time of year, G. Bush and I go down to 3 days, and everybody else, some guys lose a day, some guys stay the same. But so for the most part, will be on UCSS Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. It'll be changed a little bit during the draft and free agency, and when I go out for my surgery. But for the most part, Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. I'm here in the bullpen every Monday morning with my Q&A podcast, and then live Tuesday and Thursday with Dustin normally. Also have a podcast tomorrow. Zach Jackson will join me live from the Senior Bowl. From the Combine in Indianapolis. So we'll have an update from there with Zach Jackson coming up tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. Final things is after the Guardians, we talked yesterday about the Guardians signing Rhys Hoskins. I like the move. I obviously would love to see the Guardians still find a way to get a middle infielder. I still think I'd like to see an upgrade there. Now, in a perfect world, Travis Pizzana will replace Gabriel Arias sometime in May or June. It's time. He needs to get to the big leagues. If he stays healthy and plays well, I think there's a good chance by the summer he'll be there, especially if Arias continues to struggle as he has most of his career in the majors. And then you'll live with the, Rocchio and Naylor behind the plate who haven't hit much. Maybe one of them gives you a little more. The Guardians are relying on a lot of young hitters. In my opinion, too many young hitters. I like some of them. I don't like others. But I do, as I mentioned yesterday, I really like the Rhys Hoskins signing. I think it lengthens the lineup. There is no downside. He will definitely make the roster, or 99% he'll make the roster. Be some weird circumstance that he wouldn't. And it just gives a veteran presence and a guy who's done it. The guy, as I said yesterday, every year of his career where he's played at least 100 games, he's hit at least 26 homers. And the Guardians don't have have, one player that can say that. I guess technically two with Kyle Manzardo, but that's only been 1 year. So that accounts for something, and that's something they need. Not every young guy, even if a young guy's even young guys that may eventually pan out, they're not all going to hit in the same year. It's just so unlikely. And you can't rely, you can rely on some young guys, but not at 6 different spots. 6. I'll say Kyle Manzardo is at least semi-proven coming off a really good season. And I think he'll be even better this year, but obviously there's no guarantee. Mr. MJ says, Bull, if you're the GM of the Browns, what is your top priority with the 6th pick? Honestly, I know this sounds cliche, but it's getting the best player. In a perfect world, that player would be an offensive lineman or a wide receiver, but I'm not going to take a significantly worse player. Now, if there's a defensive player that I think that I like a little bit more than the wide receiver or the tackle by a small margin, then I would, I guess, reach, for lack of a better term. But generally, I don't want to do that. I think winning teams just take the best players, even if it may not be an obvious position of need. Maybe it could end up making sense for the Browns if they think there's a guy they can get at 10 or 8 or 12, whatever, and they trade down to get more ammunition, more draft picks for the future. Next year's draft, not only quarterback, but next year's draft supposedly, who knows, but supposedly is going to be absolutely loaded across the board. This year's draft is supposedly not the case. So if you can get an extra draft pick next year, that might make a lot of sense. But in the end, you're going to often be better off taking the best player available, with obviously quarterback skewing that a little bit, but that doesn't appear to be the case this year. Thanks, everybody, for joining me, as always. Thanks for watching and listening. If you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button. I would appreciate that very much. Thanks to Tim and Alex for producing today, and thanks to all of you for watching again. I'll have a podcast tomorrow with Zach Jackson, and then Thursday, Dustin will rejoin me live at 9 a.m. Until then, we'll talk to you next time. Where else but right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. See you, everybody.